Part 29. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yuchi. Chapter 281. In Villa Number 7 of Guanghe Washington Mansion. Looking at a small white snake curled up on the sofa, Zhang Fengjai looked at Solitsi with a trace of doubt in his eyes, wondering why she suddenly brought a white snake to see him in a hurry. Ignoring the doubtful look in his eyes, Solitsi pulled him directly to the side of the sofa, then pointed at the listless little white snake and begged. Yezi, this little white snake is sick, please help it quickly. No hurry. After shaking his head to reject Solitsi's request, Zhang Fengjai briefly observed the little white snake on the sofa, and then asked with a frown. Sister Lizzie, where did you find this white snake? Yezi, this little white snake was purchased by Lugo 11 and me from a fisherman. Looking at the dying little white snake crawling on the sofa, Solitsi explained with some distress. At that time, the fisherman planned to use it to make snake soup. Lugo 11 and I couldn't bear it, so we bought it directly with money, in order to save its life. Not because of Solitsi's explanation, Zhang Fengjai relaxed his frown. Snake. Even for bold men, it is an animal that is instinctively feared, let alone timid girls. Even if Solitsi and Shenloxi are soft-hearted and don't want to see the little white snake being eaten, they can buy it and release it directly. This. Facing Zhang Fengjai's question, Solitsi looked up at Shenloxi without knowing how to answer, with a look of help in her eyes. Yezi, I wonder if you have watched the TV series The Legend of the White Snake. After glaring at Solitsi angrily, Shenloxi walked to the back of the sofa and asked. I've seen it, Zhang Fengjai nodded and replied. Although Fangshan town is a relatively poor mountainous town, it has 3 grandfathers with special abilities, and black and white TVs have been installed in their homes for a long time. Just because he stayed in the Taoist temple for a long time, he didn't have much time to watch TV, but he happened to watch more than a dozen episodes of The Legend of the White Snake based on folklore. Do you think this little white snake looks like the white snake in the TV series? Shenloxi asked with a smile, pointing at the little white snake curled up on the sofa. In response, Zhang Fengjai did not give any reply, but looked at her with doubts in his eyes. Yezi, you are proficient in traditional Chinese medicine. You are thin and honest. You look like Su Xian in the TV series. Looking up into Zhang Fengjai's eyes, Shenloxi's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction and ridicule. If you use medical skills to completely cure the disease of the little white snake, and then kindly let it return to nature, do you think you will reenact the plot in the TV series and have a vigorous human-snake love affair? Nonsense. After hearing Shenloxi's teasing, Zhang Fengjai immediately shouted gloomily. However, the target of his scolding was not Shenloxi, but Solitsi, who was afraid of bowing her head. Because Shenloxi was his boss and a beautiful girl, whether it was teasing or teasing, it was all voluntary. But what about Solitsi? She is his girlfriend who has already had a physical relationship with him, is the future granddaughter-in-law of the Zhang family, and is the wife who will accompany him until old age. How can he take the risk of playing around with Shenloxi? Sister Litsi, let's not say whether the story about White Snake and Su Xian is true or false. Do you know how dangerous it is to approach a poisonous white snake? He pointed at the small white snake with a slightly shorter tail and a slightly pointed head. Zhang Fengjai reminded while suppressing his anger. Yezi, this is a poisonous snake. Solitsi suddenly raised her head, with a suspicious look in her eyes. Impossible. At the same time, Shenloxi, who was standing behind the sofa, also quickly retorted. The fisherman who sold us this little white snake said that it is a very rare species, has wisdom that is not inferior to humans, and is not poisonous or aggressive. Otherwise, he would not have been able to catch it and make it into a snake soup. Damn it, sooner or later I will make you suffer the consequences of lying. In order to make money, he actually ignored the safety of Solitsi and Shenloxi. This made Zhang Fengjai furious. At the same time, he decided to teach the deceitful fisherman an unforgettable lesson. Then, he pointed at the little white snake curled up on the sofa and began to explain the differences between venomous snakes and ordinary snakes to Solitsi, Shenloxi, Wang Denmei and Zhuang Jian. Non-venomous snakes generally have round heads, round necks, slender tails, and well-proportioned bodies. Venomous snakes have pointed and triangular heads, and their tails are short and shrink quickly. There are only a few non-venomous snakes that look like venomous snakes, and those are hybrid and mutated venomous snakes. And the little white snake they brought back was not only a genuine venomous snake, but also a snake demon that had developed a trace of demonic aura. If they were bitten by the little white snake, except for Wang Denmei, whose internal strength had reached the state of great success, who could last for about 10 seconds, Solitsi and Shenloxi would turn into stiff corpses in only 3 seconds at most. Hearing that the little white snake curled up on the sofa had such severe venom, Solitsi immediately hugged Zhang Fengjai tightly, while Wang Denmei immediately pulled Shenloxi back 5 or 6 steps and stayed away from him. Little white snake. Sister Litsi, if the love between Su Xian and the white snake is real, and this little white snake is willing to marry me after cultivating into a human, then are you willing to share me with other women? Zhang Fengjai asked, looking directly into her eyes after pushing Solitsi away. Of course I don't want to. After shaking her head, Solitsi glanced at Shenloxi, who was more beautiful than her, and then at Zhuang Jian, who was more beautiful than her, with a hint of gloom in her eyes, and lowered her head and whispered. But I can't be selfish and only think about myself, I have to think about you. Holding Solitsi in his arms, Zhang Fengjai glared at the bewitching Shenloxi and said softly. Sister Litsi, according to my plan, when we have saved enough money, we will return to our hometown in Shushan Zhuang to live. At that time, you feed the chickens and I read books, you cook and I burn wood, you sew and I thread the needle, we watch the sunrise in the morning, lean on each other to enjoy the coolness under the shade of the trees at noon, watch the sunset in the evening, and sleep in each other's arms at night, grow old in peace and quiet, and die together quietly. Yezi, I was wrong. When she heard Zhang Fengjai's plan for his future married life, Solitsi, who was full of sweetness, suddenly emerged in her heart. After apologizing with tears in her eyes, she responded to his possession even more vigorously. And Shenloxi and Zhuang Jian's eyes revealed an extremely yearning look. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 282. In Villa No. 7 of Guanghe Washington Mansion. Just when Solitsi and others were immersed in the reclusive life described by Zhang Fengjai's rules, the little white snake curled up on the sofa gradually straightened its body and gently swung its tail. When it was about to leave the sofa and the villa quietly, it suddenly turned its head to look at Zhang Fengjai. Threatened directly with murderous intent. If you dare to escape, I will kill you immediately. After hearing Zhang Fengjai Chikuakyo's threat, the little white snake immediately retracted its body and crawled on the sofa, its body trembling slightly. When the little white snake quickly retracted its body, its dying state immediately became more alive, which made Solitsi ask in surprise. Yai, is it not sick? Sister Litsi, no matter if you are a monk or a monster, you will only get injured but not sick. After directly pointing out that the dying look of the little white snake was deliberately pretending to be sick, Zhang Fengjai mobilized the spiritual power of his Danshan to open his eyes, and began to observe the little white snake carefully, and found that the amount of demonic energy in its body was very rare, and it should have just been promoted. Monster. At the same time, through the slight damage to the ribs and internal organs, as well as the slight floating of the demonic energy in the body that was not solid enough, he vaguely guessed why the little white snake, which was obviously a demonic beast, was captured alive by ordinary fishermen. The reason should be that the moment the fisherman discovered it, it was at the critical moment of advancing to the monster realm and was unable to attack or dodge the fisherman's capture. At the same time, the fisherman's arrest also directly destroyed the process of its promotion to the monster beast. When the demon power backfired, not only did its ribs and internal organs suffer severe trauma, but its foundation after promotion to the monster beast was not stable enough. This is why there was no reason to sneak attack Sulitsi and Shenloxi halfway. However, through the careful observation just now, he also discovered that the little white snake in front of him had an unusual physique, and it vaguely exuded a sense of majesty that shocked the mind, somewhat like the aura emitted by the special beings in Mouse Mountain when they were sleeping. Therefore, after putting away his disdainful thoughts, Zhang Fengjai sat directly next to the little white snake. Immediately afterwards, he took out 5 silver needles from his sleeves and pierced the 5 important acupuncture points of the white snake's body. Using the technique of sealing the acupoints with the silver needles, he forcibly stimulated the potential of its special physique, thereby restoring the damaged ribs and internal organs, and the realm of monster beasts that quickly consolidated and advanced. After feeling the gradual recovery of the injuries in his body and the rapid stabilization of the monster realm, the little white snake immediately raised its head and looked at Zhang Fengjai, with a look of gratitude in its striped eyes. "Okay, you can go now." After retracting the 5 silver needles that had been inserted into the acupuncture points, Zhang Fengjai stood up and waved his hand. In response, a look of doubt appeared on the little white snake's humane face. How can the white snake be a thing in the pond? It turns into a dragon when it encounters a storm. Putting his hands behind his back and looking through the door of the living room, Yezhijao sighed with a complicated expression. "You have a very special physique and have an unlimited future. If the odds are against you, you may be able to become a demon king in the future. If you are kind and willing, you can help me once in the future when I encounter an insurmountable disaster, and my help this time will be in vain." The special physique created extraordinary wisdom, which allowed the little white snake to clearly understand the reasons and expectations of Zhang Fengjai's action. Therefore, it nodded the snake's head vigorously, then jumped off the sofa and swung the snake's tail, and quickly left the villa. "Yezi, can this little white snake really cultivate into an immortal in the future, and then transform into a beautiful woman like the white snake in the TV series?" The gratitude, doubts, and nods of promise that little white snake showed just now were not inferior to those of a normal human being. This made Sulitsi, who originally had only a joking idea, couldn't help but worry. At the same time, Shenloxi also looked at Zhang Fengjai nervously. Because the plan to use the little white snake to tease Zhang Fengjai was planned by her. The purpose was not only to retaliate against him and Sulitsi for breaking through the last line of defense between men and women in advance, but also to use the white snake to test whether he could accept Huangying. If white snake can really cultivate into a beautiful woman, then what ability and charm does she have to compete with the snake demon for Zhang Fengjai? That's right. While nodding to mark Sulitsi's guess, Zhang Fengjai sighed with a playful smile in his eyes, his tone full of expectation. "The little white snake you rescued has extraordinary talents and qualifications. Perhaps within 3 to 5 years, it will be able to successfully cultivate into an immortal and transform into a beautiful woman. Then come and repay my life-saving grace today. I don't know what kind of stunning beauty she will turn into, whether she will be as virtuous and kind as the white snake in the TV series, who will be loved by everyone and make flowers bloom." Immediately afterwards, he suppressed the laughter that kept churning in his heart and left the hall, then went to the kitchen to enjoy the breakfast carefully prepared by Zhuang Jian. Logo 11, what should we do? Just as Zhang Fengyefan left the hall, Sulitsi quickly raised her head and looked at Shenloxi, with a worried look in her eyes. Regarding this, Shenloxi frowned and didn't know what to do. After all, Little White Snake is still an accomplished snake demon, and the methods used to deal with humans have no effect on it at all. Haha. Seeing the worried faces of Sulitsi and Shenloxi, Zhuang Jian, who could not help but smile, suddenly started laughing, holding her stomach. "Teacher Zhuang, why are you laughing?" Sulitsi asked in confusion. After laughing for nearly 2 minutes, Zhuang Jian managed to regain her composure and reminded him. Liz, Loxi, you were all teased by Zhang Fengjai just now, because it is impossible for that little white snake to cultivate into an immortal and transform into a beautiful woman. Really? Really? Sulitzi and Shen Loxi asked at the same time. Absolutely true. After nodding vigorously to confirm, Zhuang Jian further explained. It is difficult to cultivate monsters, and it takes a long time to advance to the realm. Even if the little white snake is promoted to the Monster King realm mentioned by Zhang Fengjai, it will take at least hundreds of years. And the so-called turning into a dragon when encountering the wind and cultivating to become an immortal is a legendary realm. So, it is impossible for it to cultivate to become an immortal and become a peerless beauty, and it is impossible for it to marry Zhang Fengjai for a little favor. Zhang Fengjai, you dare to tease us. After hearing the explanation given by Zhuang Jian, Sulitzi just breathed a sigh of relief, but Shen Loxi, who felt teased, shouted angrily and ran to the kitchen to find trouble with Zhang Fengjai. Unfortunately, at the moment when Zhuang Jian exposed his past, Zhang Fengjai had already quietly slipped out of the kitchen and hid in Xiao Yuxuan's room on the second floor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 283. The black SUV business car drove smoothly on the asphalt road leading to Fangshan town. In the business car, Zhang Fengjai, sitting on the co-pilot seat, looked out the window at the familiar river, cornfield, peanut field, and mulberry forest, with excitement in his eyes. Although he had been away from Shushan Zhangzhuang for only more than 2 months, for him who had never really left his hometown, 2 months was like 2 years. What's more, the 3 grandfathers who were not very able to accept modern technology could not contact and greet through mobile phones, which added to his inner longing. At this moment, he wished he could fly back to the Zhang family directly, so he couldn't help but urge Sulitzi to speed up. However, when he saw Sulitzi holding the steering wheel tightly and a layer of sweat on her forehead, he immediately knew that she was in a very nervous state, so he smiled and comforted her. Sister Litzi, don't worry. I've told you several times before coming here that my 3 grandfathers are very kind and gentle old men. They will definitely be satisfied with and like your beautiful, generous, virtuous granddaughter-in-law. I admit that she is beautiful and generous, but I can't afford to be virtuous. Zhang Fengjai's comfort made Sulitzi's mood gradually relax a lot, and she was temporarily in the mood to joke with him. Sister Litzi, how can I not afford a good woman like you who is gentle and virtuous, beautiful and intelligent, and considers me everywhere? Stretching his fingers to almost fill a car of famous wines and teas, as well as various gifts, Zhang Fengjai defended her with tenderness in his eyes. In fact, the reason why Zhuang Jian's business car was temporarily borrowed was that Sulitzi used the 3 days before the Mid-Autumn Festival without his consent to purchase a large number of gifts with Shen Loxi, Zhuang Jian, and Xiao Yuxuan. If he hadn't stopped them in time and selected them deliberately, with the crazy fighting power of the 4 women, the gifts they bought could almost fill a truck. I don't know if the 3 old people like the gifts I bought. Turning her head to look at the gifts in the back row, Sulitzi started to worry again. In this regard, Zhang Fengjai really didn't know what to say, so he could only smile and shake his head. However, when he saw the pair of Kirin statues about 50 meters ahead, he immediately reminded her with a look of surprise in his eyes. Sister Litzi, we're here. Slowly slowing down and turning, when the business car entered the cement road leading to Zhangzhuang, Sulitzi couldn't help but take a look at the Kirin statue on the west side, and asked in surprise. Yezi, why do I feel that the statue on the side of the road seems to have smiled at me just now? Sister Litzi, your feeling just now is not wrong, the Kirin statue did smile at you. Zhang Fengjai, who breathed a sigh of relief, confirmed with a happy smile on his face. Because it means that it has recognized your character and is qualified to become my Zhang family's granddaughter-in-law. Yezi, what do you mean by what you said just now? Sulitsi asked with a frown while slowly speeding up. Sister Litsi, the two statues of the mythical beast Kirin at the entrance of our village were made of meteorites from an unknown island in the East China Sea, and were carved by the hands of a jade knife master from southern Xinjiang. Finally, my third grandfather used the magic of the divine Taoism to consecrate them. From now on, they have the magical power to distinguish good from evil, to know right from wrong, and to deter demons and monsters. On the contrary, the girlfriends that our Zhangzhuang boys like, or the boyfriends that girls like, must pass the test of the two Kirin statues in the city of marriage. If you pass the test, you will get a smiling response and blessing from the Kirin statues. If you fail the test, you will get a glare and warning from the Kirin statues. So magical, Sulitsi couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise when she looked at the lifelike Kirin statues that looked like real beasts through the rearview mirror. Turning her head to look at the woman who would accompany her for the rest of her life, Zhang Fengjai asked with tenderness in his eyes. Sister Litsi, do you know what benefits you will get after receiving the blessing of the Kirin statue? What benefits? Sulitsi asked hurriedly. After receiving the blessing of the Kirin statue, you will not only be blessed with good fortune and wealth, but also the evil things will not dare to hurt you. For example, the evil ghost Li Changwan in the Roman holiday mansion will not only not dare to approach you to hurt you, but will also stay away from you. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's explanation, Sulitsi's eyes flashed with surprise, and she immediately thought of Shen Loxi's private request. So, when she was about to ask for Shen Loxi whether she was qualified to be recognized and blessed by the Kirin statue, Zhang Fengjai suddenly reminded her. Sister Litsi, stop the car. After Sulitsi parked the car, Zhang Fengjai quickly took out a box of soft Huazhong cigarettes from the gift bag in the back seat, then opened the car door and walked out. At the same time, Sulitsi also quickly turned off the engine and got out of the car, following Zhang Fengjai to the roadside field, where a white-haired old man squatted on the ground to rest. Uncle San, how are you doing? While greeting with a smile, Zhang Fengjai took out a cigarette and handed it over. Little fairy, you are back. Quickly getting up and patting the dirt, the white-haired old man called Uncle San took the cigarette respectfully and greeted with a smile. Uncle San, this is the wife I found in the city. Nodding, Zhang Fengjai pointed at Sulitsi standing behind him and introduced her, which made her feel shy and sweet and lowered her head. Then, Zhang Fengjai squeezed her palm hard, signaling her to call someone quickly. Sister Litsi, call Uncle San. Hello, Uncle San, Sulitsi greeted him warmly. What a pretty girl. After taking care of Sulitsi carefully, the white-haired old man praised Zhang Fengjai with a look of amazement in his eyes. Little fairy, let alone our Zhang Chuang, even the whole town, I'm afraid you can't find such a beautiful girl. Hee hee. The praise of the white-haired old man made Zhang Fengjai feel very proud and laughed twice, but then he thought of something more important, and he quickly put away his smile and asked. Uncle San, has my great-grandfather come out of retreat? Has my second grandfather been able to leave the cellar? Has my third grandfather come down the mountain? The three old immortals returned to the village yesterday afternoon, the white-haired old man replied with respect in his eyes. Uncle San, I will come to your house to play when I have time. I will go home first. Putting a pack of cigarettes into the old man's hand, Zhang Fengjai turned around and pulled Sulitsi away. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 284. Jiankan. Next, on the journey of less than 40 meters to the village entrance, he met more than a dozen old people and children in the village. Zhang Fengjai not only got out of the car to say hello, but they all had a bag worth more than 70 yuan. Huazhong cigarettes, and a Xing gift pack worth more than 30 yuan. Of course, From the respectful attitude of the villagers towards Zhang Fengjai and the title of Little God, Sulitsi knew that the man she liked was a good man respected by the whole village, which also made her feel happy. Turning east from the entrance of the village, the commercial vehicle finally stopped in front of a slightly humble single-family bungalow at the east end of the village. "Sister Litsi, are you very disappointed?" After taking a deep breath and suppressing the excitement of seeing his relatives, Zhang Fengjai asked, pointing to the simple bungalow with the worst conditions in the village in front of him. "Yizi, what I like is you as a person, not your family background, so whether you live in a foreign-style mansion or a thatched cave dwelling, I will like and accept it happily," Sulitsi said sincerely. "Let's go. Come with me to meet the three grandpas." Sulitsi's sincere answer moved Zhang Fengjai, who opened the car door and got out of the car to invite. Looking at the courtyard gate made of deep-sea ironwood, and the two courtyard gates carved with the mythical beast Purple Dragon and the ferocious beast Dazu, Zhang Fengjai mobilized the spiritual power of his dantian to penetrate into his palms, and then pressed them on the statues of Zilong and Dazu respectively. Above. Immediately afterwards, the two courtyard doors opened slowly and automatically, and then a very rich floral fragrance came out. Later, Sulitsi, who was standing at the entrance of the courtyard, immediately saw countless colorful flowers planted in the courtyard, and couldn't help but sigh in surprise. "So beautiful. Sister Litsi, these flowers were planted by my second grandfather himself, and they are also rare flowers in the world." After briefly introducing the origin of the flowers in the yard, Zhang Fengjai held Sulitsi's beautiful hand and walked into the yard. Although the 15th day of August in the lunar calendar has passed the beginning of autumn, the daytime temperature is still as high as 35-6 degrees Celsius, still giving people a feeling of sultry heat and dryness. But the moment she entered the courtyard, there was a cool and comfortable breath that made Sulitsi almost scream out. At the same time, she was extremely shocked that the three simple shabby bungalows suddenly turned into four exquisite two-story bamboo buildings. "Yezi, what's going on?" Gently shaking Zhang Fengjai's arm, Sulitsi pointed to the four two-story bamboo buildings occupying the four directions of the yard, with a look of doubt in her eyes. "This is an obstacle method that combines Feng Shui layout and Taoism. It was created by my third grandfather." After a brief introduction, Zhang Fengjai cast his eyes towards the flowers. An old man with white hair who was carefully repairing the branches and leaves of the flowers shouted in surprise. "Second grandpa." After hearing Zhang Fengjai's shout, the white-haired old man turned around quickly and said with a kind smile on his face, "Little Yezi is back." When she heard the white-haired old man's response and saw his appearance clearly, Sulitsi suddenly felt a very awkward feeling in her heart. First of all, although the other party is already an old man with grey hair, his round face without a single wrinkle does not look like an old man in his 80s at all. Secondly, when the other party responded to Zhang Fengjai's shout just now, his voice was slightly shrill, a bit like the eunuchs on TV and movies. However, the other party was not only her man's second grandfather, but also a strange person with special abilities, so Sulitsi quickly suppressed the awkward feeling in her heart, dispelled the messy thoughts in her mind, and followed Zhang Fengjai's footsteps without any hesitation. After looking Sulitsi up and down, Zhang Zhenheng asked with a hint of doubt in his eyes. "Little Yezi, although second grandpa and I have never met that little girl from the Lin family, judging from her inherited appearance and temperament, it seems that she is not the Lin Chalan who is engaged to you." Facing the second grandfather Zhang Zhenheng's question, Zhang Fengjai shrugged his shoulders helplessly, and explained with a sneer of disdain in his eyes. "Second grandpa, Lin Chalan, who is engaged to me, is a high-ranking princess. She is white, rich and beautiful in the eyes of countless men. How could she fall in love with me, a poor boy from a poor rural area? Damn it!" After hearing Zhang Fengjai's mocking explanation, Zhang Zhenheng's eyes immediately flashed with a trace of cruel murderous intent, and then he complained about the third grandfather. "When I first met Lin Dayuan's old boy in the forest of Fushan, I knew that he was not a good person. He was just a wishful thinking of wanting to use the power of the Lin family to make up for the lack of energy in you. Your wealth will not affect your worldly experience. But what about the result? His most precious eldest grandson, the most favored successor of Taoism, not only did not receive any help in terms of wealth, but was kicked away mercilessly. I'll see how he faces you later and how he deals with those ungrateful guys from the Lin family. Second grandpa, don't blame third grandpa anymore. If third grandpa hadn't made the engagement with Lin Dayuan privately, I wouldn't have been able to go to Ningji City alone to fulfill the engagement. If I didn't go to Ningji City alone to fulfill my engagement, I wouldn't have met the only love of my life. First, he defended the third grandpa who complained about the second grandpa, and then stretched out his hand to pull Sulitzi to his side. Zhang Fengjai introduced with tenderness in his eyes. Second grandfather, her name is Sulitzi. She is the woman I fell in love with during my experience in the secular world. She is also the granddaughter-in-law I chose for our Zhang family, and she has been recognized and blessed by the statue of the mythical beast Kailin. Then, he introduced Sulitzi. Sister Litzi, this is the second grandfather who doted on me the most since I was a child. Second grandfather, hello, Sulitzi hurriedly saluted respectfully. Good, good, good. After a careful look just now, Zhang Zhenheng had already seen through Sulitzi's temperament and character, as well as the yin and yang blended with Zhang Fengjai's breath, and he also liked her from the bottom of his heart as the future granddaughter-in-law of the Zhang family. So, facing Sulitzi's respectful salute, he was very satisfied and said 3 times in a row, then suddenly spread his arms, palms facing up and pushed hard. Afterwards, the petals of the flowers in the yard instantly broke away from the flower buds and floated in the air, and then formed a sea of flowers flying all over the sky. Pa! Then, Zhang Zhenheng slapped his palms together, and while shouting, he pressed directly on Sulitzi's forehead. Concentrate your mind, and the flowers will bless you. Accompanied by Zhang Zhenheng's shout, the petals flying in the sky quickly combined into colorful flowers, and then merged into Sulitzi's forehead. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 285. Zhangzhuang Jiangjia. Seeing the colorful flower composed of countless petals falling on her forehead, Sulitzi quickly took out the mirror from her bag and looked at it, and then found that there was a cherry-sized flower on her forehead, as if it was a colorful flower tattooed on it. At the same time, a cool breath made her feel like she had eaten a piece of ice cream on a hot day. Her whole body felt refreshed, and her thoughts became very clear and sharp. And at this moment, Zhang Fengjai's voice full of infinite exclamations suddenly came to her ears. To absorb the soul of 100 flowers and condense the meaning of protection, second grandpa is such a generous handiwork. Yezi, what's going on? Sulitzi asked in confusion, pointing to the colorful flowers that blended into her forehead. Looking up at the colorful flowers between Sulitzi's eyebrows, Zhang Fengjai explained with envy and jealousy in his eyes. Sister Litzi, this is how my second grandfather used the innate energy he cultivated to forcibly extract the flower souls of 100 kinds of exotic flowers in the courtyard, and then condense the protective runes that can protect the body and soul. With the protection of the guardian runes, diseases will be far away, bad luck will go away, evil spirits will stay away, and good luck will always be around. Chi. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's explanation, Sulitzi couldn't help but take a breath, and then quickly bent over to thank Zhang Zhenheng. Second grandpa, this gift from you is really too heavy, and Li Zi deserves it. Ha ha. After laughing very proudly for a few times, Zhang Zhenheng put on a nonchalant attitude and said, Since you are the granddaughter-in-law of my Zhang family, you will definitely shoulder the responsibility of spreading the branches and leaves in the future. Then your safety is more important than Mount Tai. The guardian rune of the flower spirit is nothing at all. Spreading branches and leaves means multiplying and having more children. The expectation given by the second grandfather immediately made Sulitsi lower her head in embarrassment. Second grandpa, the potential dangers in the mortal world are far beyond imagination. Can you also help your grandson condense the protective rune of the soul of a flower, so that I can have another life-saving trump card? Seeing the second grandfather's generous action, Zhang Fengjai took advantage of the situation and asked. After all, I also shoulder half of the obligations and responsibilities of our Zhang family. How can you see the rainbow without going through trials? Don't have any illusions about the guardian rune of the flower spirit. Facing his grandson's eager request, Zhang Zhenheng, whose kind smile was instantly replaced by seriousness, flatly refused with a preaching tone. Road. Of course, this immediately made Zhang Fengjai feel quite dissatisfied and complain. Second grandpa, you are partial and stingy. In this regard, Zhang Zhenheng turned a blind eye and continued to look at Sulitsi. The more he looked, the more satisfied he became, and the more satisfied he became, the brighter the smile on his face became. This made Zhang Fengjai feel even more angry. At the same time, he immediately pulled Sulitsi and turned around towards the bamboo building facing the south. Little Yezi, your uncle went to Rat Mountain early this morning and may not be able to come back until tonight, so you and the little girl should chat with me first. Just when Zhang Fengjai reached out and was about to knock on the wooden door made of bamboo, the second grandfather's gloating voice came from behind him. Second brother, this is the first time that Yezi has come home from the worldly world. I wouldn't have brought you to tease our precious grandson like this. Just when Zhang Fengjai was helplessly preparing to continue to be envious and jealous, and to accept second grandpa's preference for Sulitsi, a voice criticizing second grandpa suddenly came from behind, causing him to turn around in surprise, and then shouted excitedly. Grandpa! Sulitsi, who also turned around quickly, looked carefully at an old man walking slowly from the flowers. Like his second grandfather Zhang Zhenheng, he has the same silver hair, the same high energy, and the same extraordinary momentum. But the difference between the two is that the wrinkles on his face and the loose skin make Grandpa Zhang Jinyan look more like a normal old man. Moreover, the two people gave her different feelings. Although the second grandfather Zhang Zhenheng had always shown a very kind and gentle appearance, he gave her the feeling that he was deliberately pretending, which was far less natural than the kindness shown by the eldest grandfather. Sister Litsi, this is my great-grandfather Zhang Fengjai quickly reminded Sulitsi in a low voice after squeezing Sulitsi's delicate hand. Hello, Grandpa, my name is Sulitsi, and I am Yezi's girlfriend. Sulitsi quickly bent down to salute and introduce herself. Good. Looking at Sulitsi with a smile in his eyes, Zhang Jinyan nodded with satisfaction and then took out an exquisite wooden box made of rosewood from his sleeve. At this moment, Sulitsi suddenly felt Zhang Fengjai holding her palm with sudden force, and her breathing gradually became heavier. Since you are Yezi's girlfriend, you are also the future granddaughter-in-law of my Zhang family. You shoulder the responsibility of spreading the branches and leaves. Passing the wooden box to Sulitsi, Zhang Jinyan said with a gentle expression. So, this elixir in the wooden box can be regarded as a meeting gift given to you by me, the elder. Grandpa, you are just as partial and stingy as second grandpa. Seeing that the uncle gave the wooden box to Sulitsi as expected, Zhang Fengjai complained even more dissatisfied. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's complaint, Sulitsi took the wooden box with doubts in her eyes, then reached out and opened the wooden box directly. Then, she saw a crystal clear pill with a talisman paper on it in a wooden box, and immediately asked Zhang Fengjai in confusion. Yezi, what kind of pill is this? Ah! Looking at the pill with the talisman in the wooden box, Zhang Fengjai introduced it with naked envy and jealousy in his eyes. Sister Litsi, this is a life-returning pill with supernatural effects. My great-grandfather used 9,981 kinds of precious medicinal materials and spent 9 years to refine it. It can bring people who have died within 7 days back to life. 3 years ago, a wealthy patriarch from the imperial capital once offered a sky-high price of nearly 10 billion to buy a life-returning pill, but my great-grandfather flatly refused. Chi. It can bring people who have died within 7 days back to life. The price 3 years ago was as high as 10 billion. After hearing Zhang Fenjai's introduction of the pill with the talisman in the wooden box, Solitsi took a breath for the second time and almost dropped the wooden box because of extreme shock. Then, she swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and closed the box with reluctance, and then handed it to Zhang Zhenwang again and said, "Grandpa, this pill is too expensive for Litsi to afford, so please take it back." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 286. Zhang Zhuang Zhang Family. Without taking the wooden box that Solitsi handed over again, Zhang Jinyan pointed at the guardian rune at her forehead and turned to ask Zhang Fenjai. Yezi, if the life-returning pill refined by your great-grandfather is worth nearly 10 billion, then how much is the value of the guardian rune condensed by your second grandfather using the spirit of flowers? At least 30 billion, which is much more valuable than the life-returning pill, Zhang Fenjai answered truthfully. Girl, since you can accept your second grandfather's more expensive gift, why do you refuse to accept your great-grandfather's gift? Zhang Jinyan asked with a smile. This. Faced with Zhang Jinyan's question, Solitsi suddenly didn't know how to answer, and could only look at Zhang Fenjai for help. Sister Litsi, since it is a kind gift from your great-grandfather, you should accept it, Zhang Fenjai said very depressedly. Okay. After nodding and taking back the wooden box containing the life-saving pill, Solitsi immediately thought of the gifts in the business car and asked Zhang Fenjai. Yezi, where are the gifts I prepared for the 3 grandfathers? Don't worry. After smiling and gesturing, Zhang Fenjai bent down and plucked a fresh leaf, then put it to his mouth and blew a beautiful and pleasant song. Accompanied by the beautiful and pleasant song, Solitsi vaguely heard a rustling sound. Afterwards, she saw the famous wines, cigarettes, and teas that she, Shen Loxi, Xiao Yuxuan and Zhuang Jian bought, as well as various gifts, being carried into the yard by one black rat after another. Having witnessed Zhang Fenjai using the jade flute to control the sea of rats to drive away Tu Dehai and others, Solitsi was not afraid or surprised at all when facing the black rats carrying the gifts. Grandpa, second grandpa, I don't know what you like, so I can only prepare some daily gifts for you according to our customs. Walking to the dozens of gifts piled together, Solitsi introduced them a little embarrassedly. After all, the total value of the gifts she prepared was only a few 100,000. Compared with the life-returning pills worth nearly 10 billion and the guardian runes worth more than 30 billion, they were really insignificant. Little girl is thoughtful. Walking to the gifts piled together, Zhang Zhenhong bent over and picked up a bottle of 15-year-old national wine, and thanked with a hint of memories in his eyes. Yes. The girl took the trouble. Zhang Jinyan, who also picked up a box of top-grade Longjing tea, praised with a complicated look. The 15-year-old national wine was taken by Shen Loxi from her father's wine cellar, and the price of a bottle was only more than 6,000. The top-grade Longjing tea was purchased by Zhuang Jian through personal relationships, and the price of 1 or 2 taels was only more than 2,000. For ordinary people, national wine and Longjing tea are relatively expensive gifts. But for strange people like the great-grandfather and the second grandfather who have special abilities, there should not be such a complex emotional reaction, so Solitsi looked at Zhang Fenjai with a puzzled look. I wonder if our Zhang family's granddaughter-in-law has prepared a gift for me. Just as Zhang Fenjai was about to explain the complex emotional reactions of the great-grandfather and the second grandfather, a deep voice full of ridicule suddenly sounded in the yard. As the deep voice sounded, a gap gradually appeared in the void in front of the bamboo building on the west side of the yard. Then, a middle-aged Taoist priest wearing a grey Taoist robe, thin figure, and looking about 40 years old stepped out of the gap. What surprised Solitsi even more was that the middle-aged Taoist priest who walked out of the gap in the void had a 70% to 80% similarity in appearance and temperament with Zhang Fengjai. Third Grandpa. Looking at the middle-aged Taoist priest walking over, Zhang Fengjai immediately greeted him with surprise. The cultivation of the middle stage of the 8th level of qi condensation, the spiritual power in the Danshan is strong and solid. Reaching out his hand to stroke Zhang Fengjai's short hair, Zhang Jinyu praised with a look of satisfaction in his eyes. It seems that you have benefited a lot from the more than 2 months of secular experience. It is due to my own efforts and a few coincidences, Zhang Fengjai quickly said modestly. Whether it is an opportunity or a chance, it is also the result of my own efforts, so you don't need to belittle yourself. Faced with Zhang Fengjai's modest words, Zhang Jinyu preached with a serious look, then cast his eyes on Solitsi standing behind Zhang Fengjai, and praised after a careful look. The forehead is full, the chin is square and round, the 3 palaces are purple, and the master is complete. It is a rare life of great wealth and honor. Faced with Zhang Jinyu's praise, Solitsi did not respond and fell into deep thought. In fact, when she decided to follow Zhang Fengjai back to his hometown in Shushan to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival, she had specifically asked Zhang Fengjai about the temperament and preferences of the 3 elders. Zhang Fengjai had a very detailed introduction to the great-grandfather Du Jinyan who was proficient in medicine and the second grandfather Du Zhenheng who was proficient in martial arts, but the introduction to the third grandfather Du Jinyu was relatively simple and general. A Taoist monk who was proficient in Taoism, he liked to wear dark grey Taoist robes, was about the same age as the second grandfather, and had a slightly dull personality. These were Zhang Fengjai's introductions to the third grandfather Zhang Duyu. So, in her imagination, the third grandfather Zhang Jinyu should be a little old man with a bun, a grey Hunyuan hat on his head, a thin body, a gloomy face, and not very talkative. But the result was completely different from what she imagined. The long, soft black hair gave him a sense of elegance and elegance. The thin figure, coupled with the faint smile on her face, gives people a feeling of wanting to get close. Sister Litsi, call someone quickly. Seeing Solitsi in a daze, Zhang Fengjai quickly reached out and touched the back of her hand, and then reminded her in a low voice. Third Grandpa, hello, my name is Solitsi, and I am Yezi's girlfriend. Solitsi quickly woke up from her contemplative state, and saluted and introduced herself with a little nervousness. Yes, compared to the vicious girl of the Lin family, you are the most qualified to be my Zhang family's granddaughter-in-law. While nodding in response, Du Jinyu praised with great satisfaction. Third brother, did you know that the girl of the Lin family was not suitable for little Yezi? After hearing Zhang Jinyu's praise, Zhang Zhenheng, who had left the national wine, asked. With a lonely fate, a fate of premature death, and no offspring in life, how can she be a good match for Yezi, and how can she be blessed to be our Zhang family's granddaughter-in-law? After a flash of contempt in his eyes, Zhang Jinyu sneered and said. If it weren't for the encounter and acquaintance between Yezi and Li Zi, which required the thread of Lin Shalan's fruit, how could I have helped that ungrateful old fox Lin Dayuan? The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 287. Zhang Zhuang family. So that's it? After hearing the explanation from the third grandfather, Zhang Fengjai's eyes suddenly flashed with a look of sudden enlightenment. At the beginning, when the physiognomy successfully advanced to the great success realm, he used Lin Shalan's birth date and figured out her vicious character, and once discussed with the third grandfather about breaking off the engagement. But the third grandfather not only refused flatly, but also gave the reason that the secret of heaven cannot be revealed. Now, he finally knows the so-called secret of heaven that cannot be revealed, and it is precisely through the springboard of Lin Shalan that he needs to meet Solitsi, who has a marriage with him. In this way, his hatred for Lin Dayuan and Lin Shalan is not so strong. After explaining the real reason why Zhang Fengjai and Lin Qilan were engaged, Zhang Jianyu took out a purple dragon jade pendant carved from chalcedony from his sleeve, and handed it to Sulitsi and said, "Girl, this is our first meeting. Consider this jade pendant as a gift from me, your elder, to you." Haha. This time, before Sulitsi could take a breath, Zhang Fengjai could not help but take a breath first. Because he not only knew the true value of this purple dragon jade pendant and its powerful power, but also asked for it from his third grandfather 3 times. But every time he asked for it, he would be scolded by his third grandfather. "Yezi, is this purple dragon jade pendant precious?" Sulitsi, who had reached out to take the purple dragon jade pendant, turned her head and asked when she heard Zhang Fengjai gasp. Without answering Sulitsi's question for the time being, Zhang Fengjai stared at his third grandfather's eyes and complained with hatred. "Third grandfather, you are exactly the same as the first and second grandfathers, both of you are partial and stingy. Alas." Then, he sighed and turned his head to look at the purple dragon jade pendant, and once again asked with strong envy and jealousy in his eyes. "Sister Litsi, I remember that teacher Zhuang once explained to you in detail why we stayed in Brother Zhu's villa together." "I have explained it," Sulitsi nodded and confirmed. "In fact, the purple dragon jade pendant given to you by third grandpa has the same effect as the python jade pendant. Both can condense the real monster carved on the jade pendant through special techniques." While explaining the effect of the purple dragon jade pendant, Zhang Fengjai cut her finger and squeezed out a drop of blood, and then dripped it on the jade pendant carved with a purple dragon. The difference between the two is that the python jade pendant needs to use spiritual power and blood, and then it can be transformed into a python through the fusion of spells, but the purple dragon jade pendant only needs a drop of your blood. In the future, if you encounter fatal danger, the purple dragon carved on the jade pendant will automatically appear and help you get rid of the fatal danger. At the same time, the quality difference between the two jade pendants can be clearly distinguished from the purple dragon and python they transformed into. After the blood was completely integrated into the jade pendant, Zhang Fengjai took a piece of Tianquan silk from the hand of the third grandfather, passed it through the fine hole at the top of the jade pendant, and then hung it around her neck with his own hands. Hearing is false, seeing is believing. Although Zhuang Jian's description of the python after the python jade pendant was transformed was very detailed, Sulitsi did not have a deep feeling because she had not seen it with her own eyes. This also caused her to have no too intuitive impression of the preciousness of the purple dragon jade pendant. So, she simply used a more vulgar method, that is, to compare it with the price of money. "Yezi, if converted into money, how much is this purple dragon jade pendant worth?" "More than 100 billion. Zhang Fengjai directly gave a super high price that almost made Sulitsi faint. Fortunately, it was anticipated in advance that she might have an accident because she could not afford the super high price of the purple dragon jade pendant, so Zhang Fengjai reached out and hugged her in time. Without the slightest hesitation, Sulitsi reached out to take off the purple dragon jade pendant and return it to her third grandfather. After all, the 10th richest man in the Chinese rich list is only worth over 100 billion. A purple dragon jade pendant allowed her to directly squeeze into the top 10 richest people. This feeling of instant wealth not only did not make her feel any excitement and joy, but instead filled her heart with endless fear and anxiety. But when she wanted to find the Tianquan silk with the purple dragon jade pendant, she unexpectedly found that not only the Tianquan silk could not be found, but even the purple dragon jade pendant disappeared, which made her panic and look down. Seeing Sulitsi hurriedly lowering her head and touching her neck, Zhang Fengjai immediately guessed that she was going to return the purple dragon jade pendant, and hurriedly reminded her with a smile. "Sister Litsi, in fact, the purple dragon jade pendant can be regarded as a Taoist spiritual tool. The moment it drips into your blood and touches your body, it will directly merge into your body." After hearing Zhang Fengjai's reminder, Sulitsi suddenly calmed down when she knew that she could no longer return the purple dragon jade pendant, and then began to think about how to repay the kindness of the three grandfathers. The value of the life-returning pill worth nearly 10 billion, the value of the guardian rune worth about 30 billion, and the value of the purple dragon jade pendant worth more than 100 billion, the total value of the three treasures reached more than 140 billion, enough to make herself the seventh on the list of China's richest people. If we consider the special nature of the three treasures that cannot be bought even with money, I am afraid that the value will increase significantly, and the ranking on the rich list will continue to rise. Faced with such a generous gift, even if she worked for a lifetime, the money she earned might not be able to repay even a fraction, so she could only repay it in other ways. Regardless of Zhang Fenjai's previous introduction of the Zhang family's decline, or the expectations of the great-grandfather and the second-grandfather when they gave the gift, she knew that the Zhang family urgently needed to expand and prosper. Therefore, she decided not to take any protective measures when she was intimate with Zhang Fenjai in the future. However, relying on her own efforts alone, it is probably impossible for the Zhang family to achieve the level of human prosperity. Therefore, she began to consider Shen Loxi, Xiao Yuxuan, and Zhuang Jian, who also had a good impression of Zhang Fenjai, to see who among them was suitable to share the responsibility of the prosperity of the Zhang family with her. As a divine doctor with divine medical skills, as a martial arts master with divine internal strength, as a cultivator with divine Taoism, Zhang Jinyan, Zhang Zhenheng, and Zhang Jinai are all a group of old foxes who are kind and good at observing words and expressions and understanding people's hearts. While Sulitzi was silently considering how to repay their kindness, they had already guessed what she was thinking at the moment through the changes in her eyes, the frequency of her breathing and heartbeat, and the subtle changes in her facial expression. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 288. Zhang Zhuang Zhang Family. Seeing Sulitzi in deep thought, Zhang Jinyan, Zhang Zhenheng, and Zhang Jinai glanced at each other and found joy and pride in their eyes. In fact, whether it was the life-returning pill that took 9 years to refine, the guardian rune condensed by the innate vitality, or the chalcedony jade pendant that could transform into a purple dragon, they were all extremely precious treasures for the three masters of the spiritual realm. When they first met, they directly gave away three precious treasures that even their grandson Zhang Fenjai was reluctant to give. They had their own selfish motives and conspiracies. Firstly, through the observation of her face and figure, they not only knew that Sulitzi was dignified and virtuous and had a kind heart, but also knew that her physique was particularly suitable for childbearing, which could just solve the dilemma of the Zhang family's small number of members. Secondly, due to the influence of Zhang Jinai's disclosure of too many secrets when he was young, their Zhang family suffered the punishment of 5 disadvantages and 3 deficiencies, so that only Zhang Fenjai was left, and the only seedling also had to bear the punishment. Although the 3 of them used their divine powers and concealed the secrets of heaven to forcibly change Zhang Fenjai's fate and only let him bear the punishment of wealth, they were not omnipotent gods after all, and it was impossible for them to perfectly change a person's fate. In the end, when they forcibly transferred the punishment given to Zhang Fenjai by fate to his wealth, it affected his marriage and offspring. Peach blossoms take root in the palace of men and women, and there are few children. In other words, although Zhang Fenjai has peach blossoms and has many romantic encounters in his life, they will break up for various reasons. There are very few women who can finally enter into marriage hand in hand, and they may even be lonely for the rest of their lives. At the same time, the reason for being punished by fate when yin and yang meet is easy to cause an imbalance of yin and yang, which ultimately makes it difficult for the unicorn to descend and for offspring to be born. If you want to change Zhang Fenjai's affected marriage and offspring, there is only one way that is more contrary to secular ethics and national laws, that is, to cast a wide net by marrying wives and concubines, and try your luck to harvest offspring. If it were in ancient times, especially in the heyday of the Tang dynasty, it would be easy to say. Because according to the clear records of historical materials, Wives usually persuade their husbands to take concubines when they are 29 years old. If the husband is busy with affairs or not in the mood, the wife will take the initiative to arrange and select suitable women, and then be responsible for the marriage of taking concubines. But unfortunately, such a fine tradition has been lost, which is really sad and lamentable. Nowadays, under the policy of gender equality and monogamy, a good wife who can bear the grievances in marriage and is willing to serve one husband like Huang and envying is needed to take the initiative to arrange for him. Therefore, they took out such precious three treasures, hoping that Sulitzi would be willing to marry Zhang Fengjai and also be willing to consider his marriage and offspring. Not knowing the reason why Sulitzi fell into deep thought, and not knowing the selfishness and conspiracy of the three grandfathers to give generous gifts, Zhang Fengjai took a deep breath, forcibly dispelled the unhappy emotions caused by envy and jealousy in his heart, took out the python jade pendant broken into two pieces from his sleeve, and handed it to the third grandfather and said, "Third grandfather, this is the treasure that an evil cultivator at the foundation building stage used to hunt me down from a distance 4 days ago. An evil cultivator who practices evil ways dared to hunt down his precious grandson." Zhang Zhenheng, with a flash of coldness in his eyes, immediately flashed out to Zhang Fengjai's side. Then, he reached out to take the two pieces of jade pendants in Zhang Fengjai's hand, intending to use the evil cultivator's aura remaining on the jade pendant to directly kill the other party by using the means of remote positioning. But Zhang Jianyu took the jade pendant in advance and reminded him with a frown. "Second brother, Yezi's girlfriend is visiting for the first time. Be careful to control your violent aura and don't scare her." Turning his head to look at Sulitzi who was about to end her meditation, Zhang Zhenheng nodded, and through deep breathing, he forcibly suppressed the violent aura that emerged in his heart. The evil body is cut off, and the justice soul is killed. After his fingers gently touched the two broken ends of the jade pendant, Zhang Jianyu asked with a hint of surprise in his eyes, "Yezi, did you use the justice and evil energy accumulated in the police station to kill the python monster condensed by this jade pendant?" "Yes." While nodding his head to confirm, Zhang Fengjai hurriedly explained further. "Third grandpa, the python condensed by this jade pendant is not only more than 20 meters long, but also has the strength of the second level of foundation building. I was helpless and used the justice and evil energy accumulated by the police station to fight the python monster." Knowing that Zhang Fengjai misunderstood his surprised question just now, Zhang Jianyu smiled and comforted. "Yezi, third grandpa didn't mean to blame you at all, but was a little surprised that someone in the police station could manipulate the justice and evil energy." Seeing that third grandpa didn't blame him for having too much contact with people in the government, Zhang Fengjai secretly breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly introduced Yanguo's Hung. "Third grandfather, the man who can manipulate the police station to accumulate justice and evil energy is called Yanguo's Hung. He is not only a good policeman who truly enforces the law impartially, but also a good leader who is honest, incorruptible, and selfless. He also takes care of his grandson in many ways. At the same time, 4 nights ago, he not only risked the danger of being attacked by the evil energy to help me kill the python monster condensed by evil magic, but also secretly shot and killed the Buddha's phantom some time ago, saving my life twice at critical moments. After all, he had promised Yanguo's Hung that he would personally help him solve 2 difficult cases after returning to Ningji City during the Mid-Autumn Festival. This not only requires the approval of the 3 grandfathers, but also wants to use this to ask for some life-saving trump cards. But what he never expected was that just after he said a few good words for Yanguo's Hung, the faces of the 3 grandfathers not only darkened instantly, but also exuded a strong murderous intent. Especially the tyrannical and bloodthirsty second grandfather, his eyes were even more scarlet, representing that he was about to lose control. "Yezi, what's wrong?" The strong murderous intent immediately awakened Sulitzi, who was in deep thought. When she saw the gloomy faces of the 3 elders and the breath that made her feel palpitating, she immediately walked to Zhang Fengjai's side and asked with worry in her eyes, "It's okay. After holding Sulitsi's jade hand and comforting her, Zhang Fengjai also asked worriedly, thinking that the three grandfathers were disgusted with Yang Guozheng intervening in the fight between monks. "Grandfather, second grandfather, third grandfather, what's wrong with you?" After taking a deep breath and suppressing the strong murderous intent in his heart, Zhang Jinai's face returned to normal and he ordered, "Yezi, tell us in detail the reasons and process of your conflict with the Buddha's phantom." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 289. Zhangzhuang Jiangjia. In fact, even if their grandpa didn't take the initiative to mention it, Zhang Fengjai would introduce in detail his personal experience in Ningji City in the past 2 months during the conversation after the reunion dinner. So, he tells the truth about what happened that night. "Third grandpa, this is what happened." At the same time, Sulitsi also added to the scene she saw that night and her own feelings as a bystander. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's narration and Sulitsi's addition, Zhang Jinyan, Zhang Zhenheng, and Zhang Jinai made eye contact with each other. Afterwards, Zhang Jinyan and Zhang Jinai nodded silently, while Zhang Zhenheng turned around and walked to the middle of the flowers, then sat down directly with his knees bent. "Yizi, what is second grandpa doing?" Sulitsi couldn't help but asked in confusion when she saw Zhang Zhenheng's strange behavior. "Avenge me and kill the real Buddha directly," Zhang Fengjai replied excitedly. Thinking back to the time when Zhang Fengjai was knocked off the platform by the phantom of the Buddha and almost fell to his death unexpectedly, Sulitsi was still frightened and filled with strong hatred for the bald monk in her heart. Therefore, when she heard that the second grandfather planned to avenge Zhang Fengjai and kill the Buddha, not only did she not feel the slightest bit of intolerance, she actually raised her hands in approval. However, she didn't know how the second grandfather avenged him. "Yezi, I heard Sister Yan say 2 days ago that the bald figure who almost defeated you seemed to come from a century-old temple on the outskirts of the ancient city of Angzi, which is at least 1,000 kilometers away from our Ningji city. How could second grandpa kill him on your behalf?" Sister Lizzie, 4 monks and martial arts masters with psychic abilities, as long as they can lock the opponent's breath, time, space, and distance are not a problem. After a simple reply, Zhang Fengjai took out a folded talisman paper from his sleeve. After opening the talisman paper, a small piece of mud was revealed. Then he threw it towards the second grandfather who was sitting cross-legged with his knees bent, and reminded him loudly. "Second grandpa, this is a clay sculpture fragment used to contain the Buddha's faith. It has the aura of the Buddha's true body on it." Facing the mud thrown by Zhang Fengjai, Zhang Zhenheng quickly stretched out his hand to catch it, crushed the mud with gentle force, and then injected his innate energy into the air. Immediately afterwards, the 5 fingers of his right hand were wrapped in a milky white energy, and then he reached out to grab the earth powder falling all over the sky. Then, he grabbed a dull little man who exuded a faint Buddha light from the dust of the soil. Void positioning, mirror image appears. While giving a light drink, Zhang Zhenheng held the little Buddha's light figure directly in his palm and pressed it against the void in front of him. Immediately afterwards, a mirror gradually appeared in the empty void, and a simple and majestic temple was reflected in the mirror. Then, Zhang Zhenheng gently grabbed the mirror with his right hand. The image in the mirror was as close as the focal length of the camera, and soon he saw the image in the temple. When a bald monk sitting cross-legged in the wing appeared in the mirror, Sulitsi said excitedly. It was him. It was this bald monk who almost killed Yezi that day. After hearing Sulitsi's confirmation of the murderer's identity, Zhang Zhenheng suddenly stood up and took 9 steps back. He shouted loudly and at the same time, he punched directly at the mirror. "You are as old as a dragon and a snake." Along with Zhang Zhenheng's hoarse roar, his fist skills quickly condensed into a strange monster with a body length of 9 meters and a shape like a dragon and a snake. Yezi, what kind of monster is this?" Pointing at the ugly and ferocious beast that looked like a dragon but not a dragon, not a snake but not a snake. Solitsi felt a little scared, but there was also a hint of excitement in her heart. Dragon snake, a legendary beast, has the ability to soar into the clouds, ride on the mist, and overturn rivers and seas. Zhang Fengjai introduced in detail. Ouch! Then, the dragon snake monster looked up to the sky and let out a deafening roar, then rushed directly towards the mirror condensed by the secret technique. At this moment, the Buddha, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed with his knees bent, suddenly opened his eyes. After quickly scanning the surrounding room, he shouted with a sharp expression. Who is spying on this Buddha in secret?" Faced with the Buddha's stern words, what he responded to was that the void in the wing was forcibly torn apart, and the dragon and snake with teeth and claws appeared directly in the wing through the torn gap. Martial arts are innate, and vitality becomes a god. When he saw the dragon snake monster appearing in the wing through the secret method of distance, the Buddha's face changed slightly. At the same time, he directly took off the cassock he was wearing, then threw it hard at the dragon snake monster, and pinched out the lotus with his 10 fingers. The handprint shouted loudly. Buddha's light shines everywhere, and his holiness subdues demons. Along with the Buddha's roar, the cassock thrown at the dragon, snake, and monster suddenly shone with golden light, and its size also rapidly increased. At the same time, the golden light shining on the body of the dragon and snake made a crackling sound. Ignoring the golden light of Buddhism, the dragon snake monster showed a look of disdain in its eyes, then slowly stretched out its claws, and then lightly scratched the cassock that enveloped it. Stab! Along with the sound of the cloth being torn, the cassock, which seemed to be shining with golden light and had extraordinary power, was easily torn in half by the claws. This also made the Buddha's face turn pale instantly, and he immediately turned around and planned to escape from the wing. But at this moment, the dragon snake beast's thick tail struck at the Buddha like lightning, and at the moment when the Buddha was about to rush to the side room, he was directly beaten into a pulp. Seeing the Buddha being easily killed by the dragon snake monster, Solitsi looked at Zhang Zhenheng with an expression of shock and disbelief. At the beginning, when Zhang Fengjai fought against the Buddha's phantom, the various Buddhist teachings and methods displayed by the Buddha's phantom gave her a visual impact of being invincible in the world. And that was just the phantom condensed by the Buddha using the power of faith. Such a powerful and invincible Buddha was so vulnerable under the dragon snake monster condensed by Zhang Zhenheng's boxing. This made her truly see the power of Zhang Zhenheng, and also had a new understanding of the Zhang family, which seemed to have few people. I wonder which senior came to my Changhua temple. At the moment when the Buddha was killed by the dragon snake monster, a deep and majestic questioning voice suddenly sounded outside the wing room. In response, the dragon snake monster looked at the door of the wing room with a solemn expression, then swallowed the 2 torn halves of the cassock with a big mouth, and then turned around and returned to the Zhang family yard through the void crack. But just as the dragon snake monster returned to the Zhang family yard through the mirror, a giant golden hand condensed by Buddha's light blasted along the mirror to kill. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 290. Zhangzhuang Jiangjia. Heaven and earth are infinite, Qiankan sword technique. Seeing the giant golden hand bombarded through the mirror, Zhang Jianyu flashed a disdainful sneer in his eyes, and with a light drink, he slashed the giant golden hand in the air with the palm of his right hand. Immediately afterwards, an invisible sword energy cut the giant golden palm in half. Crack! At the same time, Zhang Zhenheng suddenly clapped his palms together, and the mirror condensed by the secret technique immediately shattered into countless grey powders and scattered on the ground. I didn't expect that Changai Buddha would be promoted to the realm of Lord Buddha. It seems that Buddhism will also be a force that cannot be ignored in the future turmoil. Seeing the golden palm of Buddha's light that had been cut in half turn into countless Buddha's power and begin to corrode the flowers in the courtyard, Zhang Jinyan sighed solemnly while waving his hand to destroy the Buddha's light. Brother, don't worry. Facing Zhang Jinyan's worries, Zhang Jinyu said calmly. If Shanghai dares to continue hurting Yezi, then I, Taoist priest Wuxin, will lift the seal of the immortal sword and be reborn, and then go to Changhua Temple to see Jinghai in person. Third brother, unless it is absolutely necessary, you cannot lift the seal of the fairy sword, nor can you leave the mountain in advance. Otherwise, Kunlun and Xingchen will be born in advance. When Zhang Jinyan heard Zhang Jinyu's plan, Zhang Jinyan hurriedly persuaded him. At the same time, Zhang Zhenhong couldn't help but changed his face and persuaded him. Third brother, what I said is right. The world of cultivation and the secular world have finally been able to recuperate for more than 40 years. Don't let your temporary anger affect the eternal opportunity that concerns our Zhang family. Grandpa, Grandpa second, Grandpa third, what on earth are you talking about? The sealed fairy sword, the early birth of Kunlun and Xingchen, the Zhang family's eternal opportunity. The things the three grandfathers just talked about were things he had never heard of before, which made him couldn't help but ask. But unfortunately, when faced with his curious and expectant questioning, Zhang Jinyu refused, using the excuse that made him helpless and depressed. The secret must not be revealed. Zhang Fengjai could only accept it with a helpless shrug. After all, there is a reason why the secret cannot be leaked. If you continue to ask, you will definitely be beaten by someone with a sealed cultivation level. Today is the Mid-Autumn Festival on August 15th, and it is also a day for families to reunite and enjoy the full moon. After waving the sleeves of his Taoist robe and rolling up 2 pieces of cassock, Zhang Jinyu first looked up to the sky and sighed, then turned to Sulitzi and gave instructions. Girl, our Zhang family only has 3 old bachelors and 1 young bachelor. We usually only deal with 1 casual meal. Since you will be the granddaughter-in-law of my Zhang family in the future, how about letting us have a taste of your cooking skills today? No problem, I will definitely cook a sumptuous reunion dinner for the grandpas, Sulitzi immediately promised happily. Girl, let me help you. After using his innate energy to wrap all the gifts, Zhang Zhenhong suggested with a smile. Okay. Then the second grandpa will help Li Ziyi kill the chickens and wash the vegetables. Following Zhang Zhenhong's footsteps towards the bamboo building facing the north, Sulitzi said jokingly. Just taking this opportunity, second grandpa will tell me a story about Yezi's childhood. Yezi, let's go, tell us about your experience in the past 2 months, and then summarize the gains and losses during the experience. After Sulitzi and Zhang Zhenhong left the flowers, Zhang Jinyu walked towards the stone table and bamboo chairs in the courtyard. Got it, Zhang Fengjai hurriedly quickened his pace to follow. Zhang Jinyan returned to his bamboo house, fetched a tea set and began to boil water and make tea. Sitting on the bamboo chair, Zhang Fengjai began to talk about his life in Ningji City for more than 2 months, focusing on the stone bridges and stone lions that puzzled him, the Holy See and alien races in the West, the current situation of monsters rampant in the city, and the following. Conflict and hatred at the Paranormal Research Institute. Of course, the tenderness with Sulitzi and the ambiguity with Shen Loxi, Xiao Yuxuan, and Zhuang Jian can all be summed up in 1 sentence. But for the shrewd Zhang Jinyan and Zhang Jinyu, they were able to accurately grasp the special relationship between Zhang Fengjai and the 3 girls, which made a look of surprise flash in their eyes. However, in order to prevent Zhang Fengjai from seeing their thoughts, Zhang Jinyu immediately put away the look of surprise in his eyes and began to answer the questions he just raised. Yezi, if I guess correctly, the 2 stone lion statues on the stone bridge should be made by the evil cultivator who once hunted you down. Because the spiritual power cultivated by the Hunyuan taking heart technique contains upright and upright righteousness, it is a fatal instinctive threat to the stone lions that absorb evil energy to generate sanity. They will definitely take advantage of the opportunity of your mental injury to take action. I see. Just when third grandpa pointed out that the stone lions on the stone bridge were made by evil cultivators, a look of enlightenment immediately flashed in Zhang Fengjai's eyes. Because he suddenly thought that the evil cultivator was not only a doctor in the affiliated hospital, but also a teacher in the medical school. And Shikiao is only 10 miles away from the medical school, so there must be an inescapable relationship between them. In the future, when facing the Western Holy See masters and vampires, there is no need to hesitate or judge whether they are good or bad. Just kill them all secretly. Zhang Fengjai frowned slightly when he heard how Third Grandpa dealt with the Western Holy See and foreign races. Because during the time when he was watching TV series in Yongsheng Group, he found that the Western Church and the alien races were like the Chinese monks and monsters, with both good and bad, and some people hated and liked them. Especially the female vampires and werewolves of the alien race, each of them has an outstanding appearance and a hot and enchanting figure. If they are not of my race, their hearts must be different. Seeing that Zhang Fengjai did not answer his order, he frowned slightly, and Zhang Jinyu immediately reminded him unhappily. If you have good intentions, there will be endless troubles. Third Grandpa, I know, shrugging his shoulders, Zhang Fengjai agreed helplessly. Of course, if he really faces vampires and werewolves in the future, he will decide whether to take action based on his own judgment. For the monsters that run rampant in the city, if they offend you, you don't need to be afraid to kill them directly. If there is no conflict, try to avoid them if you can. I know. Third Grandpa's attitude towards monsters is the same as what he thought in his heart, so Zhang Fengjai nodded and agreed quickly. As for the Supernatural Research Institute, a group of stupid people who don't understand the true meaning of cultivation, a group of ignorant people who want to destroy the Taoist sect and enslave the monsters, you don't need to pay attention to them. When mentioning the Supernatural Research Institute that he feared the most, Third Grandpa's expression was full of contempt, and his tone was full of disdain, which made Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but remind him worriedly. Third Grandpa, according to what I learned from teacher Zhuang, there are a lot of strong people in the Foundation establishment realm in the Supernatural Research Institute. With my current cultivation, I don't have the strength to confront them head-on.